Sun and water. What attracts me here is the opportunity. We have a saying in real estate in the United States, we talk about location, location, location. But for Chinese, we say 天时地利人和. 天时 means God's timing. 地理 means location. 人和 means network. So I see great timing here. The Cuba just opened up. Their labor cost is $100 a year. Even Chinese can't believe that. Chinese preparing for that. Chinese right now know that if they don't change or if they don't diversify, they will no longer going to be the manufacturer of the world. And you look at the Panama canals open up. Those are God's timing. We couldn't create that timing. I enjoy the sun too. And the fruit.
You know, you mentioned the Panama Canal, and of course we've seen Chinese business come to South Florida in a very visual way with the 4 Super Panamax cranes that are on Port Miami were imported from China. They're there to take advantage of the wider Panama Canal, which is anticipated to allow Chinese freighters to come straight into the east coast of the United States and bypass the west coast. So Miami is already building this out on the commerce side and the corporate side. Anthony,
we actually built a tunnel.
And we built a tunnel for that. That's right. That's right. 120 feet below the bay, as a matter of fact, to accommodate all of this. So Miami, Anthony, has a long history of cross-border commerce and relationships. Much of it, of course, focused on Latin America because of our geography. What are some of those lessons that are applicable to the exploration, the new opportunities that are beginning to be forged between here and China specifically and Asia more generally?
I think many organizations and business people here are already making preparations, or perhaps a little bit late and a little bit early. We need to have the infrastructure in place. We need to have the professionals who can service the incoming investors and business people. We need to have even simple day-to-day things like Chinese restaurants or tour agencies that cater specifically to Chinese tourists and visitors. We need to have translators in place on hand for conventions and meetings. So these are the infrastructure we almost take for granted now, right? Because so many Latin Americans come here, but we don't necessarily have that just yet for hopefully the influx of Chinese investors that will come to South Florida.
Angie, your experience, you've been in the United States for 31 years, operating here as well as in China. You've been in Miami now for 4 months. What are your early impressions of the cultural abilities of this community to meet the opportunities that you're seeing?
Well, first of all, I love the culture. It only took me one day to realize that I fit in here. I realized that everyone had an accent. I'm no longer stand out.
Very good.
That was a full first day. And on top of that, I actually lived in North Carolina for many years, 24 years. Miami, gosh, you guys are a very forward-thinking people here. I'm just amazed by it. And I have to credit to Greater Miami Chamber of Commerce. They have a banking committee. The Chamber of Commerce has a banking committee, and they're forming an Asia task force. I couldn't do it by myself. It has to be a whole team that's willing to work with us. I think China, is ready for Miami. The question is Miami ready for China?
Good question.
How do you answer that, Phil? You're
Well,
on a plane soon to go the other way.
That's true, and I think that we all have to be, on some level, a diplomat for the Miami market. Our company produces what we call the Miami Report, which is available to everybody free of charge, but it's something that we started after the last recession. We're now publishing our 15th edition, and it's really about what's happening here in Miami. Why is Miami truly a great city? And it helps take away the negative influence of bubbles and crashes and the things that make people stop and say, why Miami? We give you a good reason why Miami, and I think all of us have to be an ambassador of that story.
For the business audience, Anthony, today here at the Chamber of Commerce, what can they do now? What should they be thinking about now in their engagement and the commerce opportunities? As they're engaged fully in Latin America, they may be continuing to engage in Europe. looking at China as a new opportunity. It is on the other side of the globe, literally. Culturally, there may be some new lessons to learn. What should they be thinking about today?
In terms of what they can do, specifically, I know that many people are taking trips there now with the conference there in Shanghai. Certainly physical, personal interactions and face-to-face meetings are really important. And when you do have the opportunity to do that, I think building trust and building meaningful relationship with individuals that you come across either at these conferences or at meetings or through colleagues, really gaining the trust and really building meaningful personal relationship, just like we've done in other contexts, is just extremely important. And particularly in the Chinese culture, the super wealthy, the very sophisticated business people oftentimes look beyond a lot of the numbers, but just in terms of the personal relationship that they have. I think it's one of the things that's very important.
Angie, what about the expectations for this audience as they're asking themselves, how do my sales crew engage with China? How do I get my board oriented to consider Asia and China? What's going to be that ROI that I'm going to have to put together a strategy plan for?
Well, I'm not sure how many presidents or CEOs here today. Personally, when I heard cases after cases that how the front desk people, the front line, they do not know how to serve our high net worth. It's just sad. Go to our Facebook's American Datang, and then you can, inbox me. I can give so many cases. I think the first thing is every company, from the heads down, if you want China's market, you have to commit from top down. You have to train every level of your employees to be ready to serve the high net worth. Now, let me make it a point here. Just Asia, the middle class, the population of middle class is greater than North America and Europe combined. Guys, have you read a book called Blue Ocean Strategy? It's a blue ocean here. You gotta commit to global market. Now, let's put it this way. China has got 1.6 billion people. China is Asian market. Asian market is global market. So I heard a lot of talk of the company want Chinese company come here invest, but are you guys ready?
Phil, how'd you know you were ready? Are you ready?
How do you know you're ready? In business, you have to have vision. Many people just talk about what they want to do, and then other people do things. And I think that's really the message. You have to get up and do things. When we started our company in the early 90s and we wanted to focus on Latin America, there was no internet. We had to literally get on planes, go meet people, go create relationships. Today we have information at our fingertips. You have to start to educate yourself, then you have to reach out to organizations like this and network and meet people and create the relationships that become the foundation of a long-term strategy. There is no short-term approach to doing business with Asia, with China, in our opinion, and we're ready. We're out there.
We are ready for audience questions as well, so feel free to make your way to the microphone, and we will just bounce back and forth. As folks kind of line up and get ready, Phil, let me ask you, building upon that, as you operate globally, I think a lot of folks could be looking at China, not only the volatility that we've seen in the capital markets, but the government intervention, but of course the history of a very heavy-handed government role in the capital market and in commerce. How would you gauge the ease, difficulty of that environment compared to other global locations in which you operate?
Just on distance alone, I would say we're dealing with, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most difficult, this is a 10. This is very difficult to create the bonds, and we have limitations. We have geographical limitations. We don't have a direct flight between Miami and China. So somebody that wants to impulsively even get on a plane and come to the United States and visit Miami has to make at least 2 flights. Now that's going to change, and I know that the American Datang is working very hard on opening that route, and others I'm sure are focused on it. But until we make the connection easy, I mean, you look at the statistics today for how many flights are coming in from countries from Latin America. Any time of the day, from almost anywhere, you can get on a flight and get to Miami. We need that same kind of interconnectivity, and once it becomes easy, I think you'll see business just boom, take off.
Let's start over here. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, several of you have mentioned the Chamber's new Asia Task Force, which I'm chairing. Our mission is to make Miami, I described it as more China savvy or Asia savvy friendly. Philip mentioned that in these sort of big initiatives, you have to do something. We became the head of Latin America, not because of anything we did, but because of something that other people did, and that the US government welcomed the Cuban community here, and once the Cuban community was here, we became a very Latin community, and the rest of Latin America followed. So we were the beneficiaries of events that had nothing to do with us. For China and Asia, we're gonna have to do something, because like the forces of nature are not gonna just drive the Asian population here. We're gonna have to do something positive to make us attractive to them. You just mentioned, Philip, the airline connections is a mechanical need. I think Angie mentioned about having some sort of cultural awareness. But what are a couple of things that Miami can do, should do, if we want to become a key element of East-West economy between the US and China?
Angie, go ahead.
Me?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, we don't have drought. I mean, California, 5 years has drought. New York's too cold and too dirty, too noisy. Then let's focus with what we have. Now, in reality, we don't just compete with California or New York. We compete with the world. Chinese love to migrate to Europe. It's cheaper, it's faster. It takes us 5 years to get green card. 5 years. So once you realize that who you compete with, then we're talking about globalization. We don't just compete with, Atlanta. We compete with the world. Australia wanted them, Singapore wanted them, Canada wanted them. We gotta do more than just, a direct flight. We need a bank. We need to help them fund the money here. Who
Anthony?
stopped them is federal.
Anthony, I want you to build upon what Angie's talking about, because you mentioned professional services, for instance, and when we're talking about cross-border transactions, beyond just real estate, but more really deeper commerce engagement, is this community sowing those seeds? Do you see colleagues of yours being able to provide the same kind of services?
I think a lot of what we need to do improves the community as a whole, and that will be attractive to Chinese incoming investors or people who want to live here. For example, having great educational institutions, having communities that have great community centers, and we already have the weather on our side. So a lot of things that we can build on and advertise to the incoming Chinese investors and business people that will also improve our community as well. And as many people know, the emphasis on education, it's not a coincidence that Weston and Pancras have high density of Chinese families who live in there for the school system. So that's one of the things that we can do.
Great. Next question over here. Go ahead.